Good afternoon, everyone. I think I'm waiting for the music to maybe stop, although I do like it. There we go. Hello, everyone. Hello to all the lovely delegates in the room and to all our online viewers. We are in the final stretch of This Way Up, which seems quite sad. It's been such a fantastic morning. I think everyone I've spoken to has been really buzzing from the sessions we had, so I'm really excited for this afternoon and for what's next. I'm Eleanor again, for descriptive purposes again. I'm a short white woman with bleached blonde and brown hair with a long green flowery dress on. You all know the rest of the housekeeping, so I think what we're going to do is crack on with our next session, which is called Breaking Barriers. And I'm going to introduce the chair, Huttson Lo, and his panel to the stage.
So we'll do introductions very quickly and then we'll leap in. So start with me. I'm Huttson Lo. I'm Membership Officer for Film Hub North. My visual introduction is I'm a British East Asian person, mostly bold with glasses, and today I'm dressed as a punk rock garden designer. Patrick.
I'm Patrick Hollified. I'm the market manager at ARC in Stockton, and for descriptive purposes, I'm a white man with glasses, short dark hair. I'm wearing some sort of green jumper today.
And Aman.
Hi, I'm Aman Dhillon. I am the programme manager for the Bigger Picture project at ARC in Stockton-on-Tees. And for description purposes, I'm 5'5", brown eyes and a smile like the sunrise.
So we're going to leap straight in. First, Patrick's going to give us a bit of an idea what ARC is, because I'm sure not all of you will know the venue, kind of where this came from, what the context was, and then Aman will talk about the work she's been doing with ARC around breaking barriers and audiences. Patrick.
Yeah, so ARC's an arts centre in Stockton-on-Tees. We work from our building to engage people in Stockton and the Tees Valley in all sorts of arts and cultural activity, from live music, comedy, work, theatre work, family work, creative learning opportunities, exhibitions, and of course cinema, which we're here to talk about today. And back in 2020, we were about to start a project where we wanted to develop representation of South Asian people in our programme, both on screen and in our audiences. Obviously, COVID came along and interrupted that, and we picked it back up last year, which is when Amandeep came and joined us.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So I've, as Patrick mentioned, I've been part of the Bigger Picture project since August, not last August, the year before, so about a year and 4 months. We've seen great changes from the start until now, really developed, I think, from various different aspects. We've seen a lot of team changes internally, obviously a lot of development work, and I think we're in a better position now than we were when we kind of started the project. So my work has really involved kind of programming, so sourcing content, strengthening relationships with distributors, with filmmakers. A lot of content has come straight out of post-production, just finished like festival rounds, for example. We hosted the UK Asian Film Festival at ARC for the first time. We also programmed other festivals that already toured there, like Women X Festival. We've had a range of films, so documentaries, shorts, features, and really thinking about what the other activity is as well in the building and kind of programming accordingly. Obviously understanding we don't want just South Asians watching South Asian content, but trying to engage them with the full programme at ARC, and also trying to encourage non-South Asian audiences to come along and kind of engage them with South Asian content as well.
I mean, Patrick, tell us a bit more about the South Asian audiences that weren't coming, because obviously you've done other work with that audience with the rest of the building.
Yeah, so we do have a significant South Asian population in Stockton, and we just weren't seeing them often enough. We knew for the right things we could get them to turn out, particularly around our theatre. We'd worked with one of our associate artists, Umar Butt, who was making and presenting work, but then also doing some audience development activity, and he spent a year with us doing that and going out and meeting communities and trying to understand why weren't they coming as often. And there was definitely an aspect that was about we needed more work that was South Asian led, South Asian created, if we wanted to get those audiences in. But also we just needed to have more conversations with them and spend more time understanding barriers that they faced or why they weren't interested in the programme or what we weren't telling them about it that they needed to know. And so we knew that cinema was a really good way to start with that, partly because it can be really popular medium for South Asian audiences, but also it feels like one of those ones for us as an arts centre, it feels a bit less arty than some others. And so in an area where we've got quite a low level of engagement in arts and culture, generally, that's quite a nice sort of gateway art form into everything else that we do.
Thank you. So, Aman, when you first turned up in Stockton, what did you think?
Actually, a lot of people didn't know. I think one of the first things, just talking to like the local community and just having conversations, I think it wasn't obvious that there was a cinema in Arc, if I'm honest. It's known for its theatre, it's known for its music kind of concerts and things. But I was really happy to see there was a lot of work being done with marginalised communities, really thinking about lots of theatre with disability groups, lots of kind of safe spaces around things, lots of great conversations going on. And I think what was important is that everyone was on the same page, that they did want to really encourage more diverse audiences and look at content. And I think what's great about obviously independent places as well, there's not like a rigid, you can have like enhanced things, you can kind of change up there wasn't like a strict, there's a lot of things you can't do. I think it was quite flexible. It was a really a good experience, but I think the knowledge wasn't quite there and we weren't getting those groups in, so that was quite evident that a lot of work needed to be done around that.
So in terms of that, what do you think was the biggest success so far?
I think for me, just that we've seen new people come to the building, and there's definitely, we've seen that path where people have come, they've tried a South Asian film, it's the first thing that they've been to, but then they've tried theatre, they've been to community events, they've had conversations with us about what other films they're interested in seeing, and that's what we wanted, right? And it's like, it's not been quite in the numbers that we wanted sometimes, but actually I think it's the depth and quality of the interactions that we've had with people for them to go, oh, actually, I've never been to theatre before, but like I've enjoyed this film, I'll come and try it.
And Aman, what do you think was the biggest win so far in terms of the effort you had to put in and the thing that came out of it, the impact?
I think there's been quite a few things. I think definitely training your staff, I think, is really important. I think having a diverse workplace, ideally, to understand the local communities. I think one of the biggest challenges to get people through the doors is that they go where they're familiar. So if it's a new space, they haven't been there before, we are creatures of habit. We kind of go to what we know, and we will travel the extra miles and pay the extra money and pay for parking and, go at late hours if we know what to expect. And I think when you're trying to get new audiences into a venue that they haven't been to before, it's obviously thinking about a lot of things, which we won't have time to kind of cover everything today, but kind of how do you welcome them in, and I think we've definitely been working on that, really going out, talking to these groups, looking at collaborative work, what will they get out of it as well. So, if we're having a screening, can we have a director's talk or a workshop around that? So really kind of thinking about that, trying to break barriers. So that's been great. And I think the biggest success, I think, is where we started at the project. I think honestly say that the staff wouldn't have known where to read a South Asian film review, where to get films from if it wasn't like one of the mainstream kind of blockbuster films, which film festivals are around the world that are targeted towards like South Asian content, for example. So I think there's a lot more education around that. Obviously, getting somebody externally in to help is great, but you want to kind of continue to build on that. And I think that's where kind of training, having discussions, working together with the whole department, with all different departments as well. So, it's not just with the project, it hasn't just been like one or two people. We were talking about we need to actually engage more people, but it's definitely not just been me kind of coming in, or just both Patrick and I. We have been engaging and seeing what is going on in the rest of the venue, and how can we kind of bring everybody together. So for me, the biggest success has been the staff, the training, the knowledge, and people being comfortable. I think having these open conversations with like South Asian community group, if we're talking about them specifically, being comfortable to ask questions, that it's okay to ask questions, to actually go and talk to people. And if you don't know, just ask. You know, people are quite happy to give their view and actually bring suggestions. And that's the kind of feeling you want. You want it to feel like it's a community safe space.
And Patrick, you do this work with other communities as well, don't you? Because it's not a thing that's on its own.
Yeah, no, I think one of the reasons we felt comfortable being able to go into doing this, it's the first time we've ever done any sort of funded project on cinema at ARC. But one of the reasons we felt comfortable being able to do it was that we've done it with other audiences in the past. One of the ones I touched on earlier, working with Umar Butt for a year as a theatre maker. He came obviously from a completely different aspect, but came back with a lot of really good knowledge, got us into conversations in communities we'd never been able to engage before. So that taught us a lot. But we've also done a lot of work around disabled communities in the past. We're working with a specific focus with some local deaf groups at the minute, and I think it's one of those things, like Aman touched on there, like just get comfortable with not knowing all the answers. You're going to get things wrong, but just like be willing to step out of your comfort zone, because if you're going to really achieve the change that you need to, you need to grow a little bit.
And it's also understanding it's not going to happen overnight. You know, I think I used to get really like bogged down with numbers before, like, oh, you know, I expect it to be completely sold out like the first screening that we had on, but that's not going to happen. You know, you have to be realistic that it takes time. It takes time. It's a two-way thing. You have to build trust with groups, but also have that engagement, give it that personal feel where actually people will want to come along. And, you know, if they can put a name and a face, and it's that staff member that works at ARC, you know, they kind of feel that familiarity, and I think that encourages people to then come back and want to be part of the programme. But yeah, it's not, you know, as I say, it's not going to happen. And I think I don't worry. I think a change in me is since I started, that not to kind of get too stressed about, like, you know, we need to have sold out screenings, and, you know, it's fine if we've just got a few percentage increase, and that's good, or it's stayed the same. It's more about the engagement that you're having with these communities, and that what's important is that they feel that this is a venue that they are happy to come into and they feel welcomed.
And is there a particular screening you remember that kind of tells you this all worked?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate I'm not actually based in Stockton, so I actually live in Hertfordshire, so it's quite a way away. But the ones that I've been to, the one that sticks out for me is Granada Nights, I think, with director Abid Khan, because we had the director's talk afterwards. I mean, people absolutely loved it. I mean, the audience all stayed behind, obviously really engaged, wanted to have a photograph with him. You know, again, a lot of them didn't know that there was a cinema there. We're really excited to kind of follow the social media pages and see what else was coming up. So that was really good, really engaging, and we had a lot of positive feedback. Yeah.
Is there one that sticks out for you as well?
I think rather than a film, there's a particular customer that stuck out for me, who came with their daughters. They came to RAT, and that was the first time they'd ever been. And afterwards, we were like getting them to fill in a feedback form, having a chat with them. And they started asking about what else did we do in the building they'd never been in. They'd never been to theatre. They'd never been to some of these other things that we do. Got really interested in the Pay What You Decide model that we use for some of our work. And since then, they've been back to Festival of Light and Colour. They've been to the cinema. They've been to community events that we've had on. They came to a theatre show for the first time, did Pay What You Decide, really enjoyed the whole experience. And I think being able to have that conversation with them multiple times and just see how much more comfortable they've become with ARC is the thing that stands out for me over the sort of any one screening. It's more about that customer journey.
Okay. Very exciting.
And I think also, just to mention there as well, even with like our marketing strategies have kind of changed and adapted depending on who the audience is. So, for example, we had a group of asylum seekers, and you know, I think English wasn't their first language, and I think you don't want to be shoving feedback forms in their face, can you fill this in? So I think it's kind of being quite sensitive to different groups that are in the building, and actually you don't want to kind of bombard them with, okay, we need suggestions, or stay behind, we've got to talk. I think it's trying to understand that why is that group there, or what are they trying to get out of the experience, and how can we make things easier for them, that they again want to come back, but also recognising that English might not be the first language, they might not listen, South Asian groups might not listen to the same radio station or read the same newspaper. So how can you target marketing, but also how can you still have it in the mainstream kind of places, because again, you don't just want South Asians coming to South Asian films. So it's keeping that right balance. And we did a lot of engagement work with local universities as well. We've had Middlesbrough University students on board. So again, it's going to like live events, networking, kind of talking to local schools and universities and seeing how we can work together.
And I know you're kind of pulling back now from this role, because obviously it comes to an end as a project.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll still be involved, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the big ambition for you that you'd like to see out?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about, I think the word sustainability is like, we keep hearing that. And I think that's obviously the focus for everyone, is that we want people to keep coming back. We want it to feel like it's a community kind of space. So what I'd like to see is obviously the programme to continue to grow, but also for it to be part of the normal. So it's not like a one-off event, which I think we had right at the start. It'd be a Diwali of film, and it'd be for a particular event, which actually you want it to be known as a place where there is lots of diverse content. So I think that's the long-term ambition, is that it's quite natural in the programme, and then people know that that ARC is a venue that has different types of films, there's different types of content, maybe move over to other areas of like theatre and music, and have different artists in, but it becomes known for that. I think that's the long term.
And in terms of your perspective as art, what's the ambition for this?
I think just to make sure it stays consistent. So one of the things we've continually heard from communities that have been underrepresented when we go out and have conversations is, but it's just for now, it'll go away. And it's like the biggest proof we can have that we're serious about it is to make sure it's consistent. So from a point of view of, our programming team being really comfortable maintaining those relationships with distributors, booking films, getting the right content, and then having the marketing strategy to back it up, going out and continuing to build on those relationships that we've started.
Yeah. Brilliant. Have we got any questions on Slido?
We do.
Surprising.
I just quickly as well, to speak a little bit more loudly if possible. The microphones are a little low today. One question is, what examples of films have you screened, and how do you deal with the perception of low and high cultural film, i.e. the difference between array film versus RRR?
It's a really interesting question. We've actually tried everything, if I'm honest. We've had the art house films, we've had RRR, we've got Mola Jatt, if anyone's heard of that, coming up. So we're trying everything. We've tried animated films for children, documentaries, short films, films with an LGBTQIA+ theme, mental health films, lots of different. We've tried everything.
Climate change.
Yeah, climate change. We've literally tried everything, and I think it's one of those things. There's no real kind of what's right and what's wrong. I think it is one of those, especially when you're starting out. It's a kind of trial and error. Let's see, and again engage and have feedback and find out if people did enjoy it, why. If they didn't enjoy it, why. So we've had a range of films. And sorry, what was the second part of that? Was that, have I answered the question? Or
what films, and how do you balance the cultural, like high, I guess mainstream or more indie sort of?
And I think also, again, it's the marketing actually. We were talking about this because we're showing a film on Friday called Adu Goddard, and that would be maybe marketed differently. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, and I think it's one of the things like we learn through the process, right? And most of the films at ARC, we've got about a 3-week lead in, and we realised we need longer, because one of the things is you don't get as many assets generally if it's things that are coming through more independent distributors or whether it's come through a personal relationship. So in terms of building the understanding of what that film is and trying to appreciate who the right audience for it is, it's like the best thing you can do is find the time to watch the film and then have a discussion as a group to try and say what are all the different reasons that different people we've already got relationships might want to engage in, depending on whether that's more mainstream or more art house. If it's a documentary, like there's so many different reasons different audiences would want to see it, and so like look at it that way and have as many different conversations for as many different themes as you can find in there, because that's how you're going to connect an audience with it, particularly if it's not work they've connected with before.
Because the specific peculiarity about ARC is that they don't have an in-house programmer, which is a good thing and a bad thing depending on how you look at it. And so Aman is there as the person who brings in films, but now the team is doing it, and it's a team across the building, isn't it? So again, that diversity of perspective is not necessarily diversity of skin colour, but diversity of people who do different kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
So you kind of bring a different perspective to that film, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think so we work with an external programmer as well, and just doing this project's helped to put the fact we want more South Asian content on their radar, so more things come through. And actually that's where I guess the real quality question comes in, because sometimes that comes through and it is not what we want, and it's not what we want. It's not what our audiences have told us that they're interested in.
So you know better than your programmer.
I think we're getting there. I think if you'd asked us a year ago, we'd have known about as well as our programmer. But I think through the work we've done with Amandeep, we would now find we'd be much more comfortable being able to understand why we'd want to make a decision about that film than we would have been then.
Yeah. So it takes time.
Yeah.
I guess following on a little bit from that, what did the outreach and marketing activities entail to reach South Asian audience members?
Okay, so we did have some historic data. So we started off, certainly when we had the short lead-ins, we did the obvious stuff in terms of like targeted emails. We got print up in our building. We targeted, if we had events, we'd make sure that somebody went and talked about what was coming up, or that we handed stuff out. But to be honest, I think the things that have had more impact have been some more old school strategies, like physically going out and taking print out into shops and things. We tried it with volunteers and it didn't really work. And actually one of the things that's been really valuable about sending staff to do it, and I get the question becomes, is that a good use of time? It's like, for other things, probably not, but for this, it absolutely is, because it's about the depth of conversation you end up with having somebody, because like, you don't just give them a poster, they end up saying, oh, I didn't know ARC had a cinema, what kind of films do you show? And so there's people we've never engaged, like they've never been through our doors, but we've got an opportunity to have a conversation with them, and it's like we can do so much work to understand what our audiences that are coming want and why they come, but the audience that's always more difficult is the one you don't have yet. And so actually going back to some of those more like practical, physical ways of marketing are the ones that put you in contact with the people that you're not already engaging with. So it's like the value's not really in the print being up, it's the conversation that you go out and have.
Thank you. Do you think starting with low ticket prices, free events help to begin building new audiences? Do you have to be open to taking risks financially?
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday as well, actually. And I think we were talking about like kind of pay what you feel, and kind of the pros and cons with that. And I'm kind of not sure. I think it's tough. Again, I mean, if you keep your prices the same and then no one comes, it's kind of, and then if you lower the price, but you get more people, I think it's difficult, because you have to manage the costs of obviously other costs like your film licensing and things like that as well. But we've tried a combination, haven't we? We've had free events, we've had you get a free drink and some food, again trying to emphasise on that community kind of feeling, concessions, we've had student kind of ticket discounts.
Yeah, we've done targeted offers to groups. I think it is always a consideration, and I think it's obviously thanks to the fact we've had funding for this, we can afford to take that risk a little bit more. But I think new audiences are always going to cost you more money, and particularly if it's one that you've not done enough to engage in the past, it's a risk you're going to have to take at some point if you really want to achieve that change. Obviously, you need to do it in a controlled way, but most of ARC's cinema programme operates on the basis that, like, we know that with the established audience we've got, they're the screenings we're going to make money on, and then there's stuff we really care about where actually, like, if we think it's really important that that's in the programme and we're going to lose money on it, we're sort of okay with that.
And I think a lot of this is kind of coming off that point, but I think a lot of venues that I've worked with in the past, at the start, that it's kind of like the South Asian content's an afterthought after they've programmed everything else. And I think you have to really, as an organisation, think back to what your vision, your mission statement is. And I think ARC's really good at that, that it is, you know, the team that we do talk about this kind of thing, and what are we trying, the legacy that you want to leave behind, what are you trying to do, where do you want your venue to be, and how do you want people, your local people, to perceive that. And I think that's where you kind of will do anything. You will put your prices down, you will try things, because I think that's what you've got to think is, what are you trying to do, and you have to prioritise it. And if that means you don't make a lot of money at the start for that reason, it's just, I think that's something that you kind of have to just ask yourself, is that something that you can kind of live with, and really just, you know, go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You know, you can always change back.
Thank you. Have you tried screening within the communities first to then be able to get people to the cinema? So taking the cinema to them.
We talked about outdoor screenings, didn't we? And I think, has that been something, or maybe before this project?
I mean, we talked about it a while ago. It gets into a new level of complications for us, being that it's not something we already do with any VOL programme.
Yeah. What we have done is we have been speaking to somebody that organises events locally, who does like comedy and curry nights, and we kind of have been talking about maybe having like addition to the ticket that he sells, you get like an offer, so you're bringing in audiences, or there's another event happening. So we definitely have had discussions around that, so you kind of then will try and get that audience into ARC. So if you're kind of you're paying for the curry and comedy night, and you get like a £4 or a £3 ticket, or a pay as you feel opportunity to attend a new screening that you might not have tried before at ARC. So that is something that we've kind of discussed and might do in the near future.
Yeah, I think one of the things as well is, we know part of the reason that the customers that we get that return a lot, they come because of the particular experience they have of coming to ARC, and I think there'd be a new challenge in how do you recreate that experience if it's somewhere else, because you've got to take the staff and do you know what I mean? It's like it's a big thing to move and try and replicate when it's not a space that you've got the same sort of control over.
There's no guarantee you'll bring that audience back anyway.
Yeah.
Because they might love that experience and want another one of those.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be quite isolated as well, because what I think the biggest focus is, even though I'm just kind of working on the bigger picture project, there's so much happening in ARC. We want people to come and engage with everything that's happening there. And I think that would be quite difficult as well. If we took it outside, it would just be kind of film isolation. You know, we want people to come in, I think, through the doors. Yeah, and keep coming back, I think, as well. So, yeah.
Any more?
Yeah. Were other cinemas in Stockton playing South Asian films?
So we're the only cinema that's actually in Stockton. There's one that's like based just out of Stockton that's a showcase, and there's a Cineworld in Middlesbrough, both of which have had South Asian titles, but they tend just to stick to the mainstream, where we've been able to offer a really interesting mix, including some stuff that like it just hasn't been screened anywhere else.
But that is a problem, I think, especially with like Cineworld in Middlesbrough. I know when I've spoken to students, it's just really convenient for them. It's right next door to the university. They've got their Cineworld cards. There's a McDonald's right there. You know, and again, you know what to expect with Cineworld. You know you're going to get your ice cream, your popcorn. You know what the venue is, how you can dress. You know what to expect. When you haven't been to a new building and haven't and you've got to journey somewhere, I think that's where there are barriers, and I think they do tend to do better, and especially for releases like RRR or even Molajat's probably playing there as well. But I'm quite confident that I think our programme at ARC, there is such a range, and you do offer, and again with independent cinemas, you are able to add on to that. So you might get RRR at Cineworld, but you'll get RRR and a recording of the director having a Q&A, over Zoom and played on the screen, for example, or a live Skype or something. So you'll get that enhanced, and I think you get more control over things like that, with somewhere like ARC.
Because you kind of missed out the bit where you are really involved with distributors and filmmakers in India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. You're not just kind of taking stuff that's being distributed now.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing that even before it comes over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's how you can get that extra content.
Yeah, and a lot of the content, as I say, it's not been screened anywhere else before. So it's really exciting, I think, but it's just, I think it's getting people to take that first step, just to kind of come in, try something new. And then I think we really believe in the content that we put on, for definite. And I think we're quite passionate about that. And I think once people do come along, I've not heard of anyone not enjoying the film or the Q&A or the activity that we've put on.
You've talked a little bit about what films you screen, but a sort of second part of the question here is which language versions do you screen?
Yeah, so we've covered most languages, but the makeup of Stockton is we have a very large Pakistani community in the area, so they would speak Punjabi or Urdu, and the students particularly, there's a large international student base. I think there's like 3,000 South Indians, so they speak Telugu. So again, and I think what we found is with them, they quite like the more kind of blockbuster mainstream, like RRR type films. So if we were to show that, it would be in one of the South languages probably. Whereas if you're targeting more, we've had a range, so we have shown both. But I think, again, it's, where do you do your marketing activity depending on what film you're showing. But again, saying that we don't want to obviously just have Pakistani people watching the Urdu films. But Hindi is, I think, the language that obviously that it is kind of more known within all the South Asian kind of communities, and all films have been subtitled. All of them have been. I don't tend to program anything without subtitles.
In English, yeah.
So English subtitles, and we try and make them as accessible as possible. You want to add anything?
I don't really have anything to add. I think that was a good explanation.
Now we've got one more on Slido, and then I'll hand back to you, Huttson. South Asian audiences are typically big food and beverage purchasers. So has ARC changed their offering for new audiences?
Okay, so the thing that's been really difficult is just due to post-pandemic costs, our catering offer has reduced rather than us being able to increase, and we're not in a position at the minute to be able to bring that back to the level that it was. So most of the time when we've got cinema screenings, there's a really limited sort of food and drinks offer from our box office, and that's about all we can offer. We've done some targeted things around certain films, and that's part of what the funding for this project enabled us to do. But it's sort of had mixed success, hasn't it?
We worked with the council, I think, for Diwali as well. We had a whole programme that was outside of Bigger Picture, but we've had, I think, outside of my right in saying that we've had outside caterers that have done samosas and things like that, and then I think they came back for one of the screenings. So it is something we can organise, but it would be an external. But yeah, no, agreed. I think that again that adds to that welcome and going back to giving that community feel. If you're kind of going out, kind of getting a light snacks or Asian food, it's quite popular across different communities. I think, it's definitely a tick, isn't it? Yeah, if you're getting some food with your film. So, yeah, make me go anyway.
So my last question is for you as individuals. So personally, what's the one lesson that you've learned through this process? Patrick?
I think be comfortable that you're going to get it wrong a lot, and be comfortable that you're not going to get audiences straight away. Like, you've got to be consistent for a while, and then people are going to start to recognise that it's something you're serious about. It also gives you time to go out and have those conversations. But again, just be comfortable that usually if you're a person like me and you're going out and trying to have a conversation with South Asian communities about cinema, they're going to know far more about the thing that you're going to tell them about than you do. But just be okay with that. I think it's like, if you want to learn and grow, and certainly I've learned a lot more. I'm a lot more well versed in being able to talk to people about South Asian content now than I was. But part of that, to just go through those uncomfortable situations and be okay with it.
So be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. And Aman?
I think what I mentioned earlier just is okay if you don't sell out straight away. You know, it is a journey. It very much isn't like an overnight thing, and it's just building relationships. And I think whether that's with the distributors, you will get to a position where, you know, it starts off with, hi, you know, lovely to meet you, and then it's like you really know them well. And now it's got to that point that I'm quite confident that I can, you know, Patrick's been introduced to everyone, and he can quite easily now go direct to the distributors. They know him, you know, they whether they're in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, you know, Nepal, they will all hear, they know you, so they can speak to you and the team. And I think it's building those relationships, that trust with the distributors, with the filmmakers, with the local communities, with the universities. So I think just continue to build that trust. So they want to work with you, and think of it as a two-way thing. It's not just a win for us, it's a win for them too.
Great. So I'm sure there's more questions that you don't want to kind of have on Slido. We're here for the rest of the day, and I think our contact details are somewhere. I'm sure you'll find us. But I want to just thank my panellists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. If you'd like to stay seated, or you've got a couple of minutes if you need a quick comfort break, we'll be starting at 2:00 promptly with a cinema story, followed by Up from the Roots, which is going to close out our panels this year.